But you know what?
Yep.
I like it at a studio every now and then. So
I live in Texas. I live north of Houston, in a little town called Magnolia, Texas. Yeah, about the country a little bit. Yeah, it's, I drove. Yeah, I drive. Inside to just come I 10 to 65 and here. I'm able to work the whole time, and I don't have to the hustle and bustle of that big airport, fight security and TSA and your bag and all that. Yeah. I get to
Good morning. My name, wait till the chimes go away, but I don't care. I don't care about a lot of things, but I do care about Richard Scrushy. And I practiced law for over 52 years until 2 months ago when I retired from my wife and family down in Wrongful County, Florida. And when I started looking into this thing, 3.5 years ago, I couldn't figure out what Richard Scrushy had done. I knew they were out Don Siegel, but Scrushy had nothing to do with Siegel. And so, anyway, a long story short, once I got into it, I found out that they just had to have somebody. So they used, I'm not going to call his name, but you know who it is, who was the only witness against Richard and Siegelman. And I couldn't figure it out, so I called his lawyer. He was scared to come forth because the feds threatened to get him for perjury. And when they forced him to lie, but I explained to him the statute of limitations had run. And so he came forth and admitted that the federal government, working with the state government, and I mean real high ups, decided they had to have somebody, so they used Richard Scrushy and made up this complete lie. Richard is one of the smartest people I've ever met and one of the most honest. And what they did to Richard and his family is so diabolical, I think the devil wouldn't accept. And I'm going to turn it over to Richard, but this is something that's so outrageous and so coordinated in the state of Alabama, in Washington, D.C., with big time higher ups, that it is the most tragic thing in my whole practice of law I've ever witnessed. So I'm going to now turn it over to Richard, who can tell you this horrible and diabolical ploy against me.
Thank you, Tommy. I really appreciate that. And I thank you for all of you coming out today. I really appreciate you being here and listening to what we have to say. And I know we have a lot of people that are also watching us online, and I want to thank y'all for being here as well. With me today, I have my wife, Leslie, I have my daughter, Gracie, and I have my son, Jaden. Also, my brother is over here somewhere, younger brother. He's back in the crowd, supporting his brother. But we have a lot to tell you, and I'm going to get to my family in just a moment, but I want to start out by just jumping right in and sharing some information with you. We've uncovered some things that are phenomenal, things we already knew and suspected, but we just didn't have the details and we didn't have the evidence in hand. We didn't have the documented, signed, sworn testimony that we have today. So today we're announcing that we found that through Tommy, and I'll tell you how this came about as soon as I finish telling you these facts. First of all, we found concealed exculpatory evidence that reveals that there was corruption within the Department of Justice that was caused wrongful imprisonment of both me and the former governor, Don Siegel. Now, today we're asking the U.S. Attorney General in Washington, D.C., to commence an immediate investigation into this weaponization and warfare and political prosecution against the former governor and against me. We're also asking the new pardon czar to take a look at this case, and look at what our situation is, and look at the contributions that both Don Siegelman and I have made ever since our incarceration. I've been actively, involved in my community. I've done over 600 hours of work in prisons, helping other inmates, and these are things that we've been able to do since we went through the very difficult, horrible situation that we had to go through. Now, we believe those things need to be looked at. So today I want to say that Attorney Gallion and we're announcing that we've uncovered clear and convincing evidence that we were wrongly convicted and incarcerated. We were able to uncover widespread misconduct by the federal prosecutors in this case. They knowingly withheld voluminous amounts of information related to exculpatory evidence that would have proven both my innocence and Governor Siegelman's innocence. And Tommy Gallion just described it as one of the worst political prosecutions in history. Federal prosecutors knowingly and wrongly put both John Sigelman and I behind bars. They stole our freedom. They sought to destroy us. They sought to destroy our families. They attempted to destroy our lives. They eliminated our ability to financially provide for our families. And they intentionally withheld critical evidence that proves our innocence. We know that today, and we have the proof to document it and prove that is fact. Now, federal law is clear, and without exception, that type of prosecutorial misconduct and willful expression of evidence of innocence, okay, is blatantly unconstitutional and it's criminal. So what we've uncovered, and by the way, we continue to uncover, there are others that we're getting affidavits from that will further prove that what we're telling you today is true. This investigation is not over. It's going to continue till we have every person that the FBI and the prosecutors and all the investigators met with and refused to turn that evidence over as required by federal law. And that's, again, it's clearly against the law and it's criminal. I do want to share with you this. I have with me today a copy of the actual transcript of the trial. And I brought that with me right here. And I want to share this with you because this is extremely important. And I'm going to give you copies of this so you can have it, those of you in the press that would like to read it. And I'm going to tell you, you can go to page 1036 in the trial transcript. My attorney, Art Leach, he told the judge, he said, Judge, you know, we need to have this Brady information before we put these witnesses on stand. We need to have Brady information, exculpatory information, so we know who we need to subpoena. We need to be able to cross-examine these witnesses, and we need the information. Told the judge that. You know what the judge said? Judge Mark Fuller, on page 1037, Judge Mark, and oh, by the way, Governor Sigelman's attorney, Mr. Kilburn, he said, Judge, I want to emphasize on behalf of the governor, behalf of Governor Sigelman, we don't want to find out after this case is over that the government withheld Brady information. And then I've got to retry the case. He said, I've gotten convicted murderers off on the same identical thing because the court, the prosecutors refused to turn over the information. After he told the judge that, here's what the judge said. This is coming directly quoting in the trial transcript on page, starts on 1037. This is what Judge Fuller said. He said, here is the ruling from the court on this situation, which he said, excuse me. Here's what he said. He said, if there is any other Brady material discoverable, any evidence that has not been produced by you, I'm ordering the government to review all the records, to include every agent that had been involved, every attorney that had been involved, every agency that had been involved, and to make a report back to the defense before we begin trial on Monday. And he specifically called out Nick Bailey, Mr. Bailey. He wants us to have that. We received 5 302s. That's an FBI report. We have a statement from Nick Bailey that says that he met with the federal government over 70 times. He said 24 of those times he was talking specifically about Governor Sigelman and I. There's 19 302s the FBI did not turn over to us that the federal prosecutors are required by law to turn over us. We didn't get them, folks. We didn't get them. And that's wrong, and we should have had them. And because his testimony morphed and changed over time, that creates Brady information. That's exculpable, and they should have turned that over to us. And then the judge, after that, he said, lastly, to the extent that there's other Brady discoverable matters by any witness, I would also order the government to review those agents, agencies, attorneys, investigators in any classification who had any involvement with any witness in this case and to turn all of those materials over to the defense by Monday morning. And he says, if this will help you, my order would include correspondence, written, verbal, electronic, by and between any agent and any agent within the agency, whether it be state or federal. Now, after he said that, one of the prosecutors said, Your Honor, I just want to say that we don't have anything else. He said that to the judge right there, knowing that he was telling something that was not proper. And just so you'll know, sitting in the audience were the FBI agents and the investigators that were in the meetings. The sworn testimonies that we have tell us who was in the meetings. They tell us who took the notes. So we are very explicit here. We have solid, unrefutable evidence that they lied to the judge, that they withheld very important exculpable information that would have changed the outcome of the trial. Now, let me tell you what happened on Monday morning. That was Friday afternoon. Now, let's go to Monday morning. You'll find that on page 1214 of the trial transcript. The court says, while we're outside the presence of the jury, there are a few things we need to take up. First of all, I need to confirm whether the government has had an opportunity to confer with all the investigative agencies, law enforcement officials who were involved in the investigation of each of these defendants in this case, and have you discovered any additional exculpatory information that you need to turn over to these defendants at this time? The prosecutor said, Your Honor, we've looked and we found nothing. They found nothing. Now, do you believe when you've got a dozen FBI agents and investigators on the trial that they only interviewed one person and got 5 302s? That is impossible. Now, we knew it, but we didn't have the evidence. But today we stand here, Attorney Gallion and I, and we're telling you we've got solid, unrefutable, documented, sworn testimony that proves that that is absolutely not true what they represented to the judge that day. Now, let me go on. I got a few other things I want to say about that. So, we know the representation by the prosecutors was wrong. And again, they suppressed this evidence, and that resulted in the denial of a due process, see, which we all have. That's a constitutional right that we have. It was violated. So they resulted in the denial of due process and a fair and a just proceeding that would enable the defendants to present evidence that would have unquestionably proven our innocence. So we spent 20 years now, almost 20 years now, under a black cloud, as if we had done something wrong, charged as felons, which is totally corrupt and is wrong, and that has to be overturned. And we have the evidence today to prove it. So based on our witnesses, our affidavits, and other sources, the uncovered evidence proves that the prosecutorial team was corrupt and that this conviction should be overturned immediately. It proves that there was weaponization and lawfare within the Department of Justice, and we are requesting the Attorney General to support, investigate, vacate, and reverse his conviction and dismiss this case immediately. On top of that, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to send you to something. I'd like for you to go to the National Registry of Exonerations. There were 3,593 full exonerations since 1989. The registry published an article called Government Misconduct and Convicting the Innocent. And that was published on September 1, 2020. And this is in this information I'm going to hand out to you all today. What they found was that official misconduct contributed to false convictions of 54% of the defendants who were later exonerated. Guess what the number one thing was? Concealing exculpatory evidence. It was the most common type of misconduct. It occurred in 44% of all exonerations. Prosecutors committed the misconduct in 30% of the cases, and the prosecutors were responsible for most of this concealing of exculpatory evidence, misconduct at trial, and a substantial amount of witness tampering. Exonerations in federal white-collar crimes are the most common. They accounted for 41% of the exonerations, and the biggest and the most overwhelming thing that the prosecutors did was to withhold exculpatory information. So lastly, I want to say this. I'm one of those victims. I'm one of those statistics, okay? That's what's going on here. And so we now fall into that category because this is what happened to us. And our situation should be overturned, and it will fall right in line with all those others that were overturned for the same thing, the withholding of exculpatory information. Now, let me say this. With me today, thank you, Leslie, for being here. She stood with me through all of this. They put me in chains, tied me up in there with Governor Siegelman. They shipped us off in the middle of the night and put us in the most horrible place you could ever imagine, in that pen up in Atlanta, the federal pen. They put us behind what they call behind the glass, as if we were some horrible criminals. I never even hardly had gotten in any trouble in my life. Never speeding ticket. And here I am locked up in the worst place that you could be, locked in solitary confinement, send me off in chains in the middle of the night, took me away from my wife. My little girl right here was 4 years old, Gracie, when they put me in chains and pulled her out of my arms. He was 2 years old. They sent me off to prison. 5 years they locked me up. It states, if you read the information, They're supposed to put me within 500 miles of my home. They sent me over 600 miles away to Texas. That was wrong. I went to my congressman. We tried to get me moved closer to my family. They would. My wife made over 1,200 trips to see me while I was locked up. I'm telling y'all right now, I don't know how any man on this earth could get up every morning and look at his face in the mirror knowing that he did what he did, not only to me, but to my children. I have 9 children. I have a daughter out in Los Angeles, one in Nashville. I got 2 that are up in Birmingham. They had to work today. Everybody couldn't be here. I have 2 sons that are at work out in Texas right now. One son is working with me right now on the digital side of this presentation today. But let me tell you, what they did to my family was horrible. He was in diapers. They took him out of my arms. I don't know how Judge Fuller did it. I don't know how he did it. I think he knew what he was doing. So there were some horrible things that happened to our family. So we're asking the Department of Justice today to take a look at this. And just like Attorney Gallion said, he in his 50 plus years of practice, he's never seen anything like this. And today we're saying, look, on one hand, folks, here the transcript, the judge told him to do it. You know what this is right here? Oh, sir. This is the affidavits, the sworn testimony. I've got it right here. And it states who was in the meetings. They were in the courtroom when the prosecutors lied to the judge. They didn't get up and say, oh, wait a minute, I had, I met with 20 other people and you didn't tell them about that. Nobody came forward, y'all. It's taken us this long. Now I wanted to end with this. I got a call from, this is how this got started. This man called me and he said, you need to come to my office now. I need to meet with you. I'm in Texas. I said, well, I can't come now. And he said, well, I said, well, next time in Alabama, I'll come see you. He said, no, Richard, you need to come. I left. I went to visit with him. He sat down with me and he began to explain to me what he knew and what he had uncovered. One of the individuals had come in his office and spilled the beans. He came in and was just meeting with a friend of his and said, oh, by the way, I testified before the grand jury in the Scrushy trial. And he goes, you did? He says, not only that, I've met with the prosecutors many, many times. When I found that out, I'm saying, well, there's one right there. They didn't turn any of that over, so there must be others. So we started digging, and yes, there are others. We have others now. And on top of that, some of the others, we've got enough right here today to prove our point that I'm making today. But there are more of these coming because we're still investigating it. Tommy, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, let me just add one quick thing.
Yeah. I'm speaking right here. Hold it about right there.
Although I retired from the practice of law, live on the Gulf Coast, I will continue to help Richard Scrushy. And I have one message, and this thing goes from state government to federal government to higher ups all over this country, well, in Alabama and Washington. And I have one word for them: buckle your ass up. It's a federal crime what they did. They need to go to prison, just like they put my friend Richard Scrushy.
Thank you, Tommy. I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of you might have. And again, don't leave. I have a press release with you that has a lot of the information I just shared with you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get someone to hand this out to you now. Well, he's got it. Have you got it? Yeah. Would you make sure everybody gets a copy that needs it? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Scrushy, 19 years after, it's almost 19 years after you were convicted, how does it feel to finally have something that you feel like is going to prove your innocence?
That's a great question. She just asked me, for those of you online, after 19 years of having to live with this cloud over us, how does it feel today to be able to have documented evidence that would in fact prove that I'm innocent and that this should have never happened? And I paraphrased you a little bit. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But it feels great. But it not only feels great for me, it feels great for my family. I don't know, Leslie, I don't want to ask you to say anything unless you want to, baby. But as she says, I've about had it with all of this. We have suffered greatly, y'all. Let me tell you something, and you need to understand it. When I said that they destroyed our life, they took away my ability to earn money. I built 3 companies that were in excess of $1 billion. 2 of them became Fortune 500 companies. All 3 of those were New York Stock Exchange companies. For 20 years now almost, I've not been able to work. I haven't been able to do anything. This cloud over me, this felony they put on me, which I should have never had, has prevented me from being able to earn a living. And I can tell you what, right now, I built those $3 billion companies in a few short years. We're talking about like 12, 15 years. The last 20 years, I hadn't been able to work. They've not allowed me. And on top of that, a group of horrible plaintiff attorneys will not leave me alone.
I just want to say one thing real quick. It wasn't 1,200 visits. It was a 1,200-mile round trip. So I want to say that. I did visit him literally almost every weekend for 4 or 5 years. So I just wanted to correct that. And then I want to take it to a spiritual perspective because, of course, the world is a crazy place right now. And we see a lot going on. And nobody knows what to believe or any of that. And so in order to get through this, I had to look through and see the spiritual aspect of all of it. And on the day that he was arraigned here and they read the charges, he was charged with statute 666. So that was very clear to me where this attack was coming from. And then when the prosecutors rested their case, they rested their case on June 6th of 2006, 666. From my perspective, it was a conspiracy that required Franklin, Vega, and Fuller all to accomplish. If you look at their names, they all start with the letter F, which is the 6th letter of the alphabet. So that was part of how I made it through, was to continue to pray to God, to thank him for all of the blessings that we see. Yes, was it hard? Yes, were there so many gut punches? Yes, did we feel abandoned? Yes, was it horrific at so many points and turns? But I am so thankful to my Savior, to the Father in heaven, for getting us through this day, and that our children are still doing well and thriving.
Thank you.
Richard Scrushy, when he was in prison,
Get right in front of us.
yes, sir. He's used to running a big business. My wife says nobody can run me, and she's right. But anyway, be that as it may, Richard was in prison, and a lot of y'all don't know that he's an ordained minister. And by leaning on the gleaming Paul, and using the Apostle Paul, it got him through this. And one thing that nobody has brought up is that excuse somebody dancing in the street, but be that as he may, is that they raided, and Richard was in prison, raided Sweet Lester's house, took the children's toys, bicycles, cars, boats, even went in and took Lester's underwear and clothes. You know what they did with it? Put it in a dump. It's the most vicious, diabolical, horrible thing I think the country's ever seen. And just hopefully Pam Bondi, who I think is going to be a good attorney general office, will look into this further.
Thank you. I think after Leslie's speech, you can see that this is how we got through this many years. And we've continued to pray through this and work through this and just believe God for a breakthrough. And we believe that the light would always shine on this one day. And it is shining on it today. This is a beautiful day. We couldn't ask for better sunlight today, could we? We're standing out here in the sun, and on a beautiful day. It's cool. It didn't rain. So we're just thankful. I'm thankful for all of you that came today. I'm thankful that for the work that Tommy Gallion has done. He really opened the door for me and let me see, direction to go to continue gathering this information. We're nowhere near through, but we do have enough right now today that we would like to go ahead and put this behind us and get this thing overturned. And we're hoping that the United States Department of Justice will come down and will fully investigate this, and we will have a breakthrough, and that the pardon czar will take a look at it. Now I want to ask some more questions. Yes, ma'am.
Even in touch with Don Siegelman, is he aware of the development?
Don Siegelman was unable to be here. Don Siegelman is watching us right now today. He's texted me back and forth this morning a multitude of times. We talk daily about this. He is absolutely 100% behind that. He wished he could have been here today, but he's not. But if any of you do get in touch with him, he'll tell you everything. He'll support everything I've said here today.
You mentioned the U.S. AG and Trump's pardon czar. Have you been in touch with the Trump administration, and how likely do you think that you'll get that investigation and that pardon?
Well, two things. Number one, no, we haven't been directly in touch with them, not directly. As you know, he's been a little busy. He's had a lot of activity and a lot of things, and then, of course, he had the appointment of his cabinet. So I think that we're going to reach a point where we hopefully do get the attention and have the opportunity to get this reviewed by the higher ups and ranking officials that would be able to change the outcome and make this wrong but right. So we're looking forward to that. We have not got it yet, but we hope it's coming soon.
Is there a motion being filed today or already had been filed?
Okay, that's a great question. And we do have the motion. We've drafted the motion. We do have a few more witnesses that we want to go ahead and get in there. And there are a few things that we're trying to wrap up, some pretty damaging stuff that we need to go ahead and get in there. But we have enough now that I could file the motion. Yes, sir. But we're waiting. We want to wait a little while until we try to get the rest of the stuff. But because of the fact that we've got enough, and the timing is such that we needed to go ahead and start putting this out. And like I said earlier, it's going to continue. We have a website. We're going to put more and more on it as we go forward.
Any kind of timeline on the investigation?
We might file that. I don't, not right now. But yeah, I mean, we've developed it. We've written it. It's ready to go. Attorneys are finished with it. And we'll do it at the appropriate time. I'm really waiting on their advice on that.
That's a motion to ask for pardon.
No, that's a motion. That motion would be a motion to reverse these convictions and throw these cases out, which needs to be filed.
You've served your time. Why is it important for it to be overturned?
Well, that's a great question. She said, you served your time. Why is it important to be overturned? It's important because of my family. My children are living a life with a cloud over them that their dad was a federal criminal. That's a lie. That needs to be overturned. It's affected my ability to earn money, to make a living. That needs to be off of me. Nobody wants to die with some kind of black cloud, some kind of lie on them. I don't want that marking on my back because it's just not true. And I want that taken off of me, and I want all of my 9 children and I have 9 grandchildren as well. I don't want them to have to live thinking that their granddaddy was a criminal of some kind and did something wrong and bribed some governor when he didn't bribe him, had no interest in that. Y'all know that I resigned from that board under Bob James. I'd served under 3 governors. Sigelman wanted me to serve. I didn't even want to be on it. And Elmer Harris, who was president of the power company and at the same time was head of the transition chief for Don Sigelman, came to me and begged me, please come and at least give him some time. And I gave him 1 year out of a 3-year, and I resigned. And then all of a sudden, a year later, I get hit with, like I've done, wanted to be on that board. I had no interest in being on that board. I'd served all I wanted on it. I didn't like being on that board. It took too much of my time. And everyone that knows me knows that. And so this is totally fabricated. It's totally a bunch of bull. And all of this needs to be reversed. And yes, ma'am, I want this off of me. Yes, sir.
What about your work family and all the businesses that you work with, those boards, those employees? What kind of relationship today do you have with any of them?
It affected he's asking me what kind of relationship do I have with previous people that I've worked with in the past in companies and businesses. It affected my relationship. It affects people don't want to deal with you when you're a felon. It's hard. It's hard. They call you a felon. You just, he's a criminal. He did something. I didn't do anything wrong. I want this off of me. I want those people to be able to talk to me. I want to be able to meet with people. I don't want any of my family to have to deal with it. I got aunts and uncles and cousins and my brother and other people that are having to live with this. This is wrong. These 2 guys over here I grew up with, they live right next door to me. Gary and Bob and my little brother standing behind them. I grew up with those 2 guys. It's not been fun, has it? It's been difficult. And you knew all along it was bull.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good deal.
These were my neighbors when I was growing up, went to high school with these guys, knew their mamas and daddies, families. Let me tell you, it's time to get this behind us. We've lived under this cloud long enough. The prosecutors have had their fun. They got their promotions. It's time now for them to pay their dues.
Mr. Scrushy, can you talk about what difference do you believe this exculpatory evidence would have actually made? And we're talking at the moment about one witness, maybe there's others. What, if you had discovered this at the time, would that have changed about the outcome of the trial?
He's asked me, that's a great question. He's asked me if we had have known the information we have today, if we'd have known it back before the trial, what difference would it have made? Number one, we would have subpoenaed every one of those people. They would have been witnesses. These are people who have absolute truth of what went on, and they are witness to the fact that I did not do anything wrong, and neither did Siegel. Those people would have testified in front of that jury. And I can tell you right now, had they been there, it would have changed the outcome. But I got one other thing I'm going to leave you with, too, that you need to know. There was only one witness that testified against me. One. Y'all know who it was. It was Nick Bailey. Nick Bailey and I, we talk all the time. Nick Bailey has apologized to me, and he said, Richard, I knew you were a good Christian man and a family man. He says, I have regretted what happened to you. I felt horrible about it the whole time. And he says, so months ago, he called me. He and I talked, and he said, I'm so sorry, and I want to apologize. I said, Nick, you know I didn't do anything wrong. He says, I know now. He said, I've looked at all the evidence. He said, you didn't do anything wrong. There was never a check. There was no quid pro quo. There was nothing. They do not have a witness, y'all. They only had one, and he is recanted. If we had a retrial today, sir, if we had a retrial, there would not even be a retrial because they don't have a witness they could put on the stand. They only had one, and he said to me, he said, put me on the stand, put me under oath. I'll tell exactly the truth. You did nothing wrong, Richard. That's the only witness they had. And he and I talk regularly. Matter of fact, I got to tell you this. We communicated yesterday before this because I wanted him to know that I was doing this morning. He's absolutely supportive of me being here today.
You said that you have not spoken with Pam Bondi or Alice Johnson yet, and you're trying to get their attention. If they were here today, what would your message be to them?
I would tell them that I would like for them to do a full investigation of our case back in the day. I would like for them to look at all the exculpatory information. And I truly believe that they would want to take it into their hands and they would want to make that wrong right. And that's what I'm asking. I'd like for them to support vacating the convictions, reversing them. And then I would like for them to deal with those who were wrong and who did wrong. They need to face the consequences for what they did. So that's what I would ask. Yes, ma'am.
As you work to get the attention of the
Could you
federal,
come up a little closer, ma'am?
yes. Essentially, what is your plan for campaigning and publicizing your request for an overturn? Can we expect to see more of you in the public? I guess I'm just looking to see what you're going to do in the future.
Well, as the information comes out, yes, you'll see more. A lot of it will be done through through our website. But I want every one of you to know you have my number. You know how to get in touch with me. You know how to get in touch with Attorney Gallion. And I'm more than happy to do interviews and do whatever I need to do because this information needs to be out there. I'm just one of many. Remember, I gave you 3,500 and something people that had the same problem I got since in the 1980s. And look, yes, once this is done, there's a lot of things I want to be able to do that I've not been able to do that would make this country a better country. I'm very interested in growing businesses and helping people. There's a lot I can do. I built several billion-dollar companies. 2 of them were Fortune 500 companies. I don't know if y'all have ever met anybody that built 2 Fortune 500 companies. I don't think there are very many of them in the world that ever did that. 3 New York Stock Exchange companies, billions of dollars of value. I was found not guilty on all the HealthSouth charges. They had nothing on me on that. They attempted to come after me on that. They started out with 85 counts. They dropped it to 58. It ended up with 36. I was found not guilty on all 36. And I'm going to request something out of the press today. As I read everything in the press, every time it seems like they want to keep claiming that I was guilty on that HealthSouth deal. I was not guilty. I was not guilty at all. I was found not guilty. And that's what needs to be reported. He was found not guilty when they came after him. And a lot of people believe that motivated the federal government to say, okay, these particular prosecutors, well, we'll get him in Montgomery. Let's just throw him in there with Don Siegelman. We do that. And that's what happened. A lot of people believe that. And I think it's probably partially true. So there's a lot I think I can do in the future. Once this is off of me, I think it's going to open doors for me to do a lot of things that I think would improve this country, improve this state, improve my community that I live in. And I'd like to have that opportunity before I die. Any other questions? I want to tell you all, thank you again. Again, I'll make myself as available as necessary. If you come up with anything, do watch our website and know that we will be loading it with additional information. I can tell you something now. We put Tamara Grimes' statement on there. She was a paralegal. She worked for the prosecutors in our case. You need to leave here. You need to go pull down RichardsCrushyPress.com and you need to read her statement. It's a signed statement by Tamara Grimes. She was a whistleblower. She laid it out. She talked about the morphing of the testimony of Nick Bailey. She gave you details of the corruption within the Department of Justice. That is the bombshell, one of the bombshells we're giving you today. And I didn't want to go, it's too much to go into detail today and here, but I want you to go to the website and read it. It just got loaded in on RichardsCrushyPress.com. I think that alone is going to blow your mind when you read what she had to say. Okay? All right. Thank y'all very much. Y'all have a blessed day. Remember, we have the press releases up here.